Hi everyone, this is Judith Briles, your book shepherd, the author and publishing expert. And I want to walk you through some of the steps that I find that are absolutely consistent with every book that I've written. And I'm actually going to show you how I started structuring a book that was one of my most successful books called Sabotage: How to Deal with the Pit Bull, Skunks, Snakes, Scorpions, and Slugs in the Healthcare Workplace. And I found that there is 4 key components. It doesn't matter if it's fiction or nonfiction. Let's look at fiction first. In fiction, our key character is called the protagonist. And the protagonist has always got something going on. He's got a problem or she's got a problem. Now there's a causation to that problem. Sometimes they did it themselves. Or it could have been done by an outside natural force or some bad person or some family member or a beau or who knows what it is, but something caused their problem. And then there's an effect to it. There's this dominoing that happens. What is it? And then lastly, there's a solution, or at least how do they get out of the fix that they're in. So those are the components for fiction. Hey, no different from nonfiction. In nonfiction, when you're writing nonfiction, you're writing as the author to answer a question, to ease the pain, to give the solutions, to reveal some unbelievable new find. So you're giving information. The fiction person is entertaining, whether they're doing humor or sci-fi or erotica or romance or how-to, self-help, inspiration, motivation, body, mind, spirit. What they're doing is some form of entertainment, all right? Now, when you get into this, that they're starting with, and I'm going to take you through, as I said, Sabotage. This is what the cover looks like. We're going to do a whole session on why this cover evolved as it did. But Sabotage: How to Deal with the Pit Bull, Skunks, Snakes, Scorpions, and Slugs in the Healthcare Workplace. So what I've told you, by the title alone, this book is not for everyone. As an author, with your vision, you need to understand who it's for. All right? This is for healthcare. I've told you, as the author, that's the audience. Sabotage is a bastardization of sabotage. And I'll get into that. But that's the book we're going to go through. So let's go to the first step. What's the problem? All right? So I found in my dealing with all of these, when I lay out a book, I will literally have either a whiteboard or I will have a poster, and I will start with sticky. Now you see you have, there's little circles around here with an M in it. This is the M&M book. This is the book that every time I finished a chapter, pat on the back, I got a bag of M&Ms. All right, that was I decided my reward. I also tell you I have another vice. It's called Cheetos. But the computer pad gets all sticky orange. But all right, so that's my reward here. Now, people. So I'm going to start out with that we have a problem and the people who's it's for on that. So we'll start there. Secondly, that I'm addressing the people in healthcare. Who works in healthcare? Well, nurses, doctors, dentists, staff, administration. You can also now reach it out, people who work in pharmaceutical companies, service providers. They are all in the healthcare umbrella. So these are the people that I'm writing for. There's a problem. Now the problem I identified from a national study that I did that dealt with workplace behavior. All right, the problem was this: if you worked in a healthcare environment and you were a female, there was a much higher probability of being undermined by a coworker or a manager than if you worked in a more integrated corporate workplace. Problem. What did the problem cause? Great question. So the causation of that is multiple. And the causation, so I would have a cause up here. And the cause of toxic behavior, and we just called it what it was, toxic behavior, was that people quit. People quit. Now, if you know anything about what happens when people quit, money has to be spent for the replacement, for new training. People have to, they get charged overtime because people have to fill in till the new kid on the block comes in. There's a variety of things that go on. Productivity, because people are now working longer hours, they're a little bit pooped, they're stressed, it goes down. If you have toxic behavior, that's on the turnover. If you have toxic behavior going on, here's what happens. People start walking around the causation, the problem of it, because they don't want to interact with it. So their productivity goes down because they're playing all these games to avoid that interaction. Then communications go down. One of the biggest causes of conflict is poor communications. One of the solutions is better communication. Conflict increases. People are at ends, whether it's communication, non-cooperation, gossiping. You fill in what you think conflict looks like to you, it increases. The bottom line is people start to hate their job. And for an organization, huge amounts of money are lost in the process. So causes. And we found also, I don't have a post-it for it, but here's another thing we found from the study that we did, is that we found that 1/3 of our female respondents chose, if they had their choice, the druthers, they wouldn't want to work with another woman. In a healthcare environment, which is predominantly female, this becomes a problem. All right, the third component then, is that we would start looking at is the effect. What's the effect? Well, because we have, and I think I'm going to take the effect is that it was much more prominent in the female-dominated workplace. As I said, the effect was women didn't want to work with other women, and that also becomes in the problem category. And the effect was people didn't want to talk about it. And the effect, coming back, the cause, you have all these causations of this activity, I could easily move over. The effect was the turnover, the productivity, the communication. These became crossed over as we went along. And then we had to look for what the solution is. And this is where the solutions came from me as the person who was conducting interviews, who was doing this national study. I came across with a variety of solutions to it. And one of them started with, you've got to learn how to confront. You've got to understand different behavior areas. So we have the people, we have the problem, we have the cause, we have the effect. Now we have to come up with, what are the solutions? Well, the solutions involved, number one, I was going to do a study. And I did a study that went out to thousands of men and women who worked in healthcare. Secondly, the solution was to write the book. That was a solution because my population reads and they like books. So that was part of my solution. Part of the solutions was start talking to people, do interviews, one-on-one interviews, because I wanted to integrate their stories throughout the chapters of what I found from the study that I would do. Part of the solution was to create what we called, is there a stabitor in your midst quiz. And part of the solution was to create, weaving throughout the book, what I would call ahas or your call-outs, where things that you want people to absolutely remember. And another part of the solution was to create what we called JB Keepers. And those were little takeaways, that little nuggets that they would have that I would give to them, different from the call-outs, which might be a study part or something that someone had said, and then we'd move that, and then we would have within that, from those interviews, from those studies that we would do, we would come up with what I would call my key points. And in this one, the interviews, the stats, I would be citing people, and I would be coming up with 10 key areas throughout the book that we saw that were woven in creating as well as the resolution of conflict. And we found that it flowed. I was able to sit down and very methodically go through it and put the book together in a fairly short period of time. Not a year, and certainly not 5 years. I was able to complete the study within a 2-month period of time over with several methods where I had distribution. It was a random study. I certainly used things like SurveyMonkey to assist me. Then the crunching what it is. The interviews took the most amount of time, and we came back with that. And then we started integrating it in, and I started finding the pattern, what people were reporting. I was looking for the consistency. And the reason why I do interviews, which, by the way, I always let people sign off, approve what I'm going to quote from them. It's always a policy in my book. That what we found is they came across a variety of things that actually fueled the book and almost wrote it for me. And those interviews revealed unbelievable pain, stories that women and men shared that happened to them in their workplaces. So the structure of a book with what's the problem, who are the people that are affected to it, what's the causation of it, what's the effect of it, and what's the solutions to it, will really be the ingredients that will put a book for you that in the nonfiction area that has meaning, solutions, and answer for your reader. For your fiction, it sets up the whole frame of what's happening to your hero or heroine and what got them into the mess and how they go about getting out of it. I'm Judith Briles. Come back to the Book Shepherd and we'll have more for you.